Welcome to Connecting Communities, a Beyond the Blog podcast by the Patterson Foundation. We're here to discuss insights and inspirations from the Suncoast Campaign for grade level reading and more. In each episode, we'll explore how communities can come together to support the success of children and families and to engage the parents, caregivers, educators, and organizers who care so deeply about them. Welcome to Connecting Communities, a Beyond the Blog podcast of the Patterson Foundation. My name is Leah Verier-Dunn with the Patterson Foundation, and today we're talking about attendance. With me today is Donna Puhalovich, a consultant with the Patterson Foundation and fellow team member of the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading Initiative. Donna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me today.
I'm so thrilled that you're here. We're here to talk about attendance, like I said, and you have been involved in the poster contest, our attendance awareness poster contest for a while. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yes. So in the month of September every year is Attendance Awareness Month. So the SCGLR has promoted a poster contest that is open to all public schools and public charter schools in Manatee, Sarasota, DeSoto, and Charlotte County. So any of those schools can participate. If they want to participate, we provide them with a template for each child in their school, ages pre-K through 5th grade. And each child will create an artwork that will be judged by the school and will announce a winner for each grade.
That's so wonderful. So truly, any school that wants to participate can. And why is it so important to bring awareness to attendance? Like, what's the big deal?
Right. So, and a lot of parents will say, "What is the big deal?" And to be at risk is missing 10% of school or more a year. That sounds like a lot, but if you think about it, it's only one day every 2 weeks. And there are children that miss a day of school and is like, that's not a big deal. The parent doesn't think it's a big deal, so they miss another day of school. And before you know it, they've missed 10% of school, which has a lot of trajectory of not being successful as a graduate. So in September, the beginning of the school year, we try to promote the importance of attendance, so that the schools can message the parents and the children how important it is for them to be in school every day. And it's not only for the child to be in school every day. Of course, when they're not there, they miss a lot of work. But also the whole class gets disrupted because that child is not there that day. And so it's just really important for families to start the healthy habits of getting children to school every day. So with the poster contest, the template is fairly blank. It is just promoting why every day counts, and the children can be as creative as they want to what that message speaks to them.
Okay.
And in the hopes of doing this poster contest, not only will the teachers talk with the students about the importance and how much that teacher wants that child in their classroom every day, but when they go home with the poster, they'll have that same discussion with their parents, and that messaging comes from the school to the teacher, to the child, home to the parents, and that it is just a continuing conversation that attending school every day is very important for success.
And the poster contest is so interesting because also on this episode, we're going to be talking about the Motivating Improved Attendance Initiative,
right,
which is really focused on that sort of connection building between the school and the families, but it's sort of focused on the adults. The poster contest involves the children.
Yes.
And I think children are our biggest teachers. So if we give them something like this contest to participate in, all of a sudden this conversation about the importance of showing up at school, the messaging is coming from the kiddo instead of from the adult. What an interesting and impactful way to get the family to pay attention when the message comes from a different place. What are some of the outcomes we've seen? Like how many schools have participated or how many children? What is that looking like?
Right. So last year in the 2025, 2026 school year, we had 67 schools participate.
Wow.
So that sounds like a lot, but 40,000 children actually filled out the
Whoa.
poster. So when you think about 40,000 children, yes, that messaging is going far and wide.
Wow, 40,000 children. So you said the judging then happens at the school level?
It does.
Okay.
Each school will pick a winner for each grade.
Okay.
Each person that wins will receive their poster back framed. They will receive a $25 Amazon gift card, and they will receive a signed certificate from the school superintendent. So we wrap it all up in a nice little package, and they have a nice little gift to bring home for winning and being proud as a winner for their school. But also, the schools get copies of these posters, and we frame that for the school.
Whoa.
So the school will have, depending on if they have pre-K or not, could have 5, 6, 7 winning framed posters that SCGLR provides them, and they can put these up. When I go to the schools, they're usually up in the office.
Yeah.
Which again, messaging.
Yeah.
The message goes throughout the whole school year when you have these winning posters sitting in the offices, so that when parents come in and they see it, and maybe they remember back in September they did this, and how important attendance is throughout the school year.
I love that, and I think that parents and families are much more likely to look at the artwork of kids on the wall than yet another poster with some kind of messaging that's like, don't forget this.
Or
is
sending
important.
a flyer home.
Or sending
and flyers are great. I mean, they have its place. But, parents will look at a flyer, and it's a flyer, it's another flyer. But an artwork piece that a child did is going to grab their attention, and they're going to look at it and see those words. And the more you talk about attendance, and it becomes just part of regular everyday vocabulary, the more importance it will have.
Absolutely. That message really starts to drive home. It's that, what do they say? You have to hear something 7 times or whatever before you know.
I know.
So if it's coming at you from all these different angles,
Right.
you start, as a parent, you start to go, wait a second. I've heard this thing about attendance and absenteeism. This must be important. So Donna, tell me a little bit about, once the child or family gets that poster, are they working on it in school? Is it something they take home? I've seen some of these images, and some of them are really remarkable. Like, holy cow, there's some big artists in our school systems. So when are they working on it? How does that look?
And there are some that are just incredible, and there are some that are so thought-provoking. And they're amazing. Every school is a little bit different.
Okay.
So I will say, with the pre-K class, we ask that it be a class project, because 4-year-olds drawing on that big piece of paper is a lot.
Yeah.
So the teacher is instructed to make that a class project. So that can look different. Sometimes they use thumbprints.
Yeah.
Sometimes they each draw a little something. But for the kindergarten through 5th graders, some of them do them in class. Some of them do them in their art class. Some of them take them home, and they work on them at home and bring them back to school. So it's really up to the school how they want that to work.
Okay, that's so great. And then it's just that timeline of, it starts at the beginning of September and ends at the end. So however that teacher, school, or family approaches it, that's their window of time.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, a teacher may have them work on it 20 minutes a day,
for that whole month,
for several days or whatever, because you've seen some of the artwork, and
some is so elaborate.
And it's nice when they have a chance to really think about what they want to draw, and let that creative juices kind of flow in their brain.
Yeah.
And have it come out on paper instead of just, when you look at them, I don't think they're just doing it in 10 minutes at all.
No, it seems so thoughtful, which I think is the point. We don't want you to race through this. We're giving you that month because we want the messaging to stick. We want you to think about why every day does count. What does that mean to you as a kid?
And it does say the word contest. So when you tell a child contest,
they're like,
game's on.
Game's on. I'm bringing my best foot forward. So you're telling me that we're framing all these posters and we're delivering them back to the schools. Do we have like a million elves working for the Patterson Foundation?
So we do have a million elves. They're called our volunteers. So the Patterson Foundation has this great, great core of men and women who are our volunteers. and they come in and they help us frame. And I'm going to take a peek real here. So we had 373 winners last year.
Wow.
And we have to frame twice for each winning poster because the student gets one, the school gets one. So it's 746 posters we framed last year.
That's a lot.
So our volunteers come in and they frame these posters. And what's even more fun is that they get to see these posters. And once again, with messaging, you are continuing that communication with your community members. Even though they may not have young children, they might, teach at a, at a Sunday school. They may have neighbors. They may have grandchildren. But the message is important for everyone in our community. You have to build up the community to understand the importance of attendance. It takes a village. And so when we bring in volunteers to see this, they're part of our village.
I'm so glad you brought up that piece about community because I talked about this with Susan Flores too, who's also on this episode. And we were kind of talking about that community buy-in and how it can't just be about the person that's at the school, like the kid or that family or that teacher. Everyone needs to understand that showing up to school matters because it affects the outcomes of these children down the road. It has an effect on graduation rates and grade level reading and all of those things that we're aiming for. And most communities, I think, as a whole, want children to thrive because it means that their region is going to do better. So I love that idea of that. The volunteers are, coming with the intention to give back to the community, but walking away with this really important message that they can carry on, whether it's, wherever they're touching the community beyond that. That's so great. So do you feel like, have you been able to talk to families, or do you know any of our team members that have talked to families to hear their reactions or any feedback they've had after participating in something like this? Do we ever get to talk to the families? That's more through the schools?
It is.
Okay.
It is. I will tell you this, though. Any school who opts in to do this program, we will provide messaging for them.
Oh, that's great.
To help them along the way. They can certainly do their own messaging, but we provide messaging that the principal can do with their teachers, and that the teachers can do with their students, and that the teachers can do with their parents. Because as we all know, the kids come in and they have, parent-teacher conference here and there, and we help provide messaging for that child that hasn't been showing up so that the teacher doesn't have to come up with...
It's not one more thing.
Right. It's not another thing. It's another tool in the toolkit.
I'm really glad to hear that about the messaging for the school, because I think there can always be trepidation for schools or teachers to sign up and say yes to something because the whole thing looks great, but what is that going to mean for me and my workload?
Time-wise.
And that's a lot. Our teachers and our administrators have so much on their plate. So I'm so happy that those that are listening who are in that boat know that we've got the whole system set up for them.
Yes.
So all they have to do is really kind of take the posters and the messaging you're saying, and then they can apply it as they wish, but all the tools are there for their school to be able to participate.
And also when a school participates, they get somebody assigned to them, like myself, and I have other teammates that help me, that are their connection. So if they have a question, or they need extra support, or they have ideas, because we always like new ideas, it's just, we try to make it as simple, easy, toolkit friendly application in English, in Spanish, anything that they want. It is, I would say, evolving. So every year, and we've been doing this since 2016.
Okay.
Every year, it's better. It's better because we are listening to the feedback that the schools have, and what it is that they need to make it easy for their teachers. Because I think if something is easy for you to use, you're going to use it. But if you're given something with 10 instructions on how to go through it, it's going to go on the pile.
Right? It's going to go on the pile.
Correct. And then I touch base with all the schools just to make sure that they're good, that they don't need anything else from us.
That's so helpful to know that there's that connector. So we're not handing this off and saying, good luck, we hope you enjoy participating, but that we're there to, team members are there to answer questions and help facilitate so that there can be high participation. So if a school is interested, how do they get involved? How do they sign up to participate?
So if they are interested, they should contact Beth Duda now. I know, we're in the summer right now. Her email is bduda@thepattersonfoundation.org, and they just need to simply email Beth, and she will get them all set up.
Okay.
But the poster contest does start September 1st, because that September is the Attendance Awareness Month.
Okay.
And it starts September 1st, and it ends the end of September, and then the schools are judging the posters.
Okay.
Starting October 1st. So we don't have a flexibility in there. It is a timed thing on purpose.
Right. We're trying to, at the start of the year, really encourage that that focus on showing up to school. Do you have anything else that we haven't talked about that you feel like is really important for families listening, or teachers or schools that are listening, to make sure they know?
I mean, so my personal thoughts are that children want to go to school, and the teachers want their children in school. It's different for different. Why students don't show up, it's different for different families. But I think the goal is to get them there. They miss out if they don't show up. The class misses out if their classmate isn't there. And it becomes a habit of not showing up. And so that's why we really start with pre-K, so that it is just like you get up in the morning, and I think you eat breakfast every day, right? And then if you're a child, Monday through Friday, you go to school every day. Like, it is just part of your everyday routine.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a strong student, so that they can be strong readers by 3rd grade, so that they can graduate from high school, that they can go out in the world and be part of the community. Now that we're relying on our volunteers to help us, that they just can continue that whole process of strengthening our community, which is what everybody wants.
Yeah, everybody wants our children and our families to succeed, absolutely. And, you said that they miss out when they don't show up, and I think that kids want to show up when they feel like there's something to be a part of, and in order to build that, they need to be there to build those relationships with their friends, with their teachers, with the school. So getting there, especially in those early years, pre-K, kindergarten, and creating that pattern as like, this is the norm and this is what we do, it gives them the opportunity to be a part of building something that they want to be part of, and then kids want to show up.
And the one thing I saw once that just, it warmed my heart, I was out of school, and a child showed up who had missed a day, and the teacher was like, "Johnny, we missed you so much yesterday." And she just made this big deal about how much he was missed that one day. And I was like, wow, this kid really feels welcomed. He feels missed. He feels valued.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. And I bet that child did not miss another day for a very long time.
It's such a wonderful shift in perspective. For so long, the attendance had these like very punitive sort of, if your kid doesn't show up, you're going to be in trouble. That doesn't make anyone want to get there. That can be off-putting, and it can feel scary and overwhelming. So this shift towards, we missed you, we want you here, creating that feeling of, I'm valued in this space. How powerful for those children starting at such a young age.
Absolutely.
So thanks for sharing that story.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for being on the podcast today and talking about the poster contest. I hope that it encourages more schools and classrooms to be involved, because I really think it's such a fun way to celebrate showing up to school, especially during that month of attendance awareness.
I agree. Thank you, Leah.
Thanks. Here to chat with me today is Susan Flores, Coordinator of Social Work and Mental Health Services for Charlotte County Public Schools. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Leah.
I'm so happy to have you here. before we dive into all the deep details, first I want to just get a little bit of your history. If you could tell me a bit about what being a social worker in the schools looks like and how that relates to attendance.
Sure. So I've been with Charlotte County Public Schools since 1999, and I started off as a school social worker. So I've been part of our history in knowing how school social work works as far as helping our families and our school staff in working with students to get them to school. And when I came into my role as the coordinator of social work, we really wanted to make sure that that maintained part of what our department did. Because at that time in 2022, our absence rates were quite high. And it was just post-pandemic and very difficult in getting some of our families and students back involved in our school system.
I was going to ask you in a little bit about what attendance looked like in Charlotte County. So was it particularly related to that post-COVID era, or was attendance an issue always and it got worse?
I think that it just became much more in the forefront of what was happening after the pandemic. I think we were pretty stable before. And post-pandemic, we had just a shift in what families thought about in-person learning looked like. And so that, coupled with some barriers, just kind of created additional absences for our families and students.
That makes sense. So attendance is a really hot topic right now. I feel like, especially since that post-pandemic time period across the country, really. But can you help us understand why chronic absenteeism is such a big deal? You know, I know it's defined as missing 10% or more of the workload that happens in school. Why does that have such a grand effect on learning?
Sure. So research has shown that for every absence, there's missed instruction, right? It just makes sense. And so regardless of whether that absence is due to a family vacation or a family reunion out of state or sickness or other barriers, that's missed instruction. And so the research is showing that we only have our students for 180 days. And so if they're missing 18 days of that, which would be that 10%, missed instruction is holding them behind in any of those academics that they may need assistance with. I think partly what happened after that pandemic was that families maybe thought our students could learn more at home, or they weren't missing so much because they had to stay home. But that's what we're trying to shift, that mindset that we do need to be in-person learning and we do need to be in school in order to have that instruction.
And I imagine that one child's absence has an effect on the whole classroom, not just that own person's learning, and an effect on the teacher. What does that look like?
Sure. Yeah, our educators are amazing human beings. I mean, they're able to pivot. Yes, they're able to pivot. And if they have a student come in late, they have to catch that student up to what they've missed the first 15 or 20 minutes, and then they pivot back to the whole classroom. And then the same if that student returns after maybe being out the day before. They're differentiating all of what their lessons are to keep everybody on the same pace. And that does make it more difficult for them. And so then, of course, that student is falling behind when they're trying to keep everybody moving forward at the same pace, or, going forth even further.
Yeah. And that pivoting, though the teachers are superheroes in pivoting, I imagine it still creates disruption in the day, which it really does have an effect on everyone's learning. And that over time, compiling this person's gone this day, then this person's gone that day, that probably makes things quite difficult for a classroom to function at its highest levels.
Sure.
So what do you feel like some of the challenges, since you've been the social worker in the school and now you're in this more of a leadership role, what are some of the challenges that social workers are facing in terms of chronic absence?
I think a lot of what we're trying to balance is working with our families and understanding that importance of the instruction that is being missed. I will say I'm older than you, and so back when I was maybe in kindergarten or first grade, maybe our standards weren't the highest of what we were working towards. But, we have a lot of really good information, a lot of standards where teachers are trying to meet. And so I think that that's often not perceived by our families and understanding that. So we have to work on that. I think that's one of the things. I also think that there are some barriers for our families in terms of community resource needs. And our social workers, again, are trying to work firsthand. It may be laundry needs, it may be transportation needs. There may be just a lot on a parent's plate and trying to navigate all of the things that they have in a household and trying to ease that to show, let's get Johnny into school and enjoy that day of being able to settle your things that you need to do, go to your work, do different things that you might need to do at home in order to have things balanced.
Are there more than one? Is there more than one social worker at any given school, or how does?
Good question. So in Charlotte County, we're very, very lucky that our social workers are full-time, one per school.
Okay, that's cool.
And so, so that they have a really important part on that school attendance team in helping those barriers. But we want our first line to be our communication between our teachers and our school administration with our families. It's kind of that mentality of like, how can I help? Right? So we aren't trying to find out, like, why are you not here in school? We're really trying to initially find out, like, how can we help you? Because we know ideally you want your student in school every day. It's kind of like coming to work every day.
Right. I love that mindset because it's not with a punitive approach, but it's really more of an engagement approach of we understand barriers exist and we know we can't solve all the problems, but is there something that we can do to ensure that your child gets into their seat today?
Exactly.
And I imagine that it's much more, families are probably much more receptive to that approach than you're going to get in trouble if your kid doesn't show up.
Absolutely. And if we don't ask how can we help, we're not going to know what those barriers are
right.
to
How
begin with.
Yeah.
And so it really is that idea that we're just trying to help their family system operate to the highest level by getting the resource, which is school. Public education is school that is provided to you. So let's help you access that resource.
And I feel like so many families don't necessarily know about all of the resources that are available within a public school or the resources that public schools have connections with. And it's not the family's job to just figure it all out. It's really our job to help them understand what's available. And it sounds like that's how you're approaching and accessing these families with that kind of mindset.
Sure. Like the social workers really help our families navigate and get the resources that they need. Sometimes it's even just parenting kinds of things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Having that support, some of our social workers just are there to provide that support to the parent. It's not just student support.
That's so important for families to know that that's available in our schools.
Sure.
I know that Charlotte County's been involved with our Motivating Improved Attendance initiative. So tell me what that's looked like for your county.
Yeah, so we've been so happy and thankful for having that program and really just being able to offer a how can I help approach to our families again. So what we've done is we really tried to boost up what that messaging looks like once we've identified our cohort of students who would fit into the criteria for the program. We then promote that and promote that and promote that. And even when a family maybe hasn't met the criteria, we kind of give them like a good attempt, nice try, and like, what else can we do to help you improve this in the future? Because we really do see that by offering some incentive, it helps to kind of build those habits back up. That is one of the things that we've noticed is that once our families and students slip down into the poor habits of attending, then it's just really difficult to get back into a routine.
Yeah.
And the MIA program has helped that. It's helped
great.
kind of promote that habit building.
I think you're so right. You know, it's much easier to go down than it is to climb up. So I think, you know, sort of the purpose of this program is to get that connection before the downslope really happens. So just for our listeners who aren't familiar with the initiative, can you sort of explain what the criteria looks like and then what that those next steps would look like in terms of communicating with a family?
Sure. So we identify the number of students or the names of the students who have missed 10% of instruction in an initial time period of the school year. And then we let them know that if they can improve that attendance to not be chronically absent any longer, then they'll receive a gas card. And it's in a denomination of $25 per student, which is just a really nice kind of incentive to say, transportation might be one of the barriers that you're having. It may just be this is something that you can use to say, hey, we were able to make an improvement and we get a reward.
Right.
And so then our social workers and our school teams will message along the way, either direct phone calls or through our Parent Square parent notification app. And we just really send some positive messages like 1 week down, great job. You've been in school for 5 days in a row. Let's keep it going. Things such as that, or you've missed a day. We hope everything is okay. How can I help? And we just kind of keep that up and going to get us through that next cohort time period. And then, of course, celebrating the success because we've had nearly 50% success rate on that cohort. That's making wonderful. An improvement.
So what has the response been from family? Is this program a big change to what you were doing before, or has it just supported what you were already doing? And whatever the answer is to that question, what has the response from families been in terms of that like increased communication, those touch points? Like, I noticed you weren't here today. If as a parent, that would feel really meaningful to me. It's not just the automated message from the school of your kid wasn't here today, right. But wow, somebody cares that they did not see my child today. That's going to give me a different sort of commitment to investing into the community of the school.
Sure.
So I'm curious, what kind of responses you're seeing.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of piggyback on what you were just saying too, because one of the things that our school leadership often hears me say is that if I didn't show up for work for a week and nobody at Charlotte County Public Schools reached out to make sure I was okay, it wouldn't make me feel very good about my workplace or about coming to work in general, right? And so we really try to show that our messaging is along those same lines. Like, we miss you. We miss what you bring to our classroom. How can we help? Because why are you not here? And so we were already engaging on some notifications and some processes to help build how we talk to our families and our students about being in school. And this program just came along right so nicely, parallel to what we were trying to do to really boost it up. Because again, it's we know what the research says about nudging parents along and letting them know, but this just kind of helped us boost that for them.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we know, and the execution part is hard until there's that extra layer of support. So I'm glad that the program is working so well for you. Were there any particular success stories that just made you go, oh, we're doing well, it's working, this family just had a whole turnaround, anything that's worth sharing in that way?
I can't think of an actual story right now. I should have come with one of those for sure, because I know there were, but I just know that all of our schools felt very good about the fact that we had that improvement shown. I just think that shows that too.
That's so wonderful. Have you guys thought of any cool ways to address attendance with the entire county, not just those families that are struggling, but has there been any messaging that you found that's helping the entire community understand the importance of attendance? Or how have you approached your celebrations for those who have really improved their attendance goals?
Sure. We've been having a lot of fun with contests. We realize we're very competitive among schools and among grade levels. So twice a year we do a district-wide competition. And in the fall, we do, for September Attendance Awareness Month, we do a competition that is basically elementary versus elementary, middle versus middle, high versus high. And we keep track all month long. And our Chick-fil-A Port Charlotte sponsors us, and they help us celebrate with rewards. But the kids really get into it. If anybody follows our social media platforms, they see our schools are very competitive again, talking about what they're doing in their building to keep their kids and how we can win. And so that's always very fun in September. We did something brand new this last year in March. We modeled it after attendance. After March Madness.
Okay.
For basketball, and so we had
you sent me the basketball pictures.
Yes, you would have gotten those. And so we had a district-wide champion, one champion for the whole entire district, because they had head-to-head competitions very similar to March Madness with the NCAA. And so we modeled after that, and that was a lot of fun. And it culminated in one of our winning schools having a basketball competition between our superintendent and their assistant principal, who are both over 6 foot tall. So the students really did love that.
Oh, that's so fun.
So we really just are trying to bring that awareness. And then the community connection with that. Chick-fil-A Port Charlotte sponsoring it, but also promoting it on their social media. And I think that's our next step, is really trying to get our business partners to understand the importance of attendance. We have had a proclamation before our county commissioners for attendance. We really just need to build on that next, because we know when students are in school, parents are able to participate in the workforce.
Yeah.
We are building better students with higher work ethics. So we know all of the things that come together when we have good attendance.
I'm so glad you brought that community piece in, because I feel like that does start in the school. When you feel like you're a part of something bigger, you want to show up when you feel like you're a part of something. And so that gives kids that inspiration to be like, Mom, Dad, caregiver, make sure I get there today. I've got to show up because of X, Y, and Z. Whether it's the March Madness competition of attendance, it's not so much even the subject of attendance. It's wanting to be a part of something. And I think when the community at large sees that, whether it's a business partner or other members of the community, you realize how much value there is in investing in our schools in that way. And as, you know, somebody, you're bumping into children at the bookstore or at Target or at the grocery store, and you say, hey, how was school today? Those kinds of little moments where everybody in the community cares that your kids were at school and were learning. So I think you're like right on target with thinking of how else can we dive into the community moving forward for next year. I love that you're thinking about that already. My next question actually was, I was curious what you were going to say about how we need to come together as a community to address this need. So in continuing to think forward, what do you think you'll ask of the community in the coming years to come together around this idea of attendance and showing up?
Sure. I think messaging is so important. Common language, talking about how important school is, how important it is to be there every day. I feel like that alone can just change the framework of how we're all looking at it. It's not about the incentives, or it's not about, giving us some meals, things like that, like we do for our contest. It's more about promoting it and making sure that parents do understand and that students do understand that every day is a day missed. Every day has opportunity. And so the more we can pull every day together, that's going to matter. And so I firmly believe we get our healthcare providers on. Sometimes we're trying to educate. If you go to a well child visit, which may have to be during school because of scheduling, it doesn't mean you have to miss the entire day, right? And so just that messaging and starting to spread that, I think, is really a next best step. How to do it? Yeah, a lot of work, right? Yeah. But I just already see the improvements we're having with people paying attention to that.
That's so great. And I think what a wonderful idea to include the healthcare providers, because they're seeing those kids, whether it's their sick day or their well visit. Right. They have a touch point with families from 0 up to, kindergarten. So how do they incorporate in their visits the importance of letting families know, to show up at school? If you were talking to any family directly that really just maybe didn't understand the why yet. Why is this so important? So what? My kid was sick a few days. They're doing okay. They'll get back there. How would you help to strengthen that parent's or caregiver's understanding? What would you say to them to help them really get it?
Sure. Often we kind of take a couple of different approaches. based on what we maybe see what that student may be needing. So it could be explaining what the classroom looks like. And again, back to my story of what it might have looked like when I was a student or when our parents were students, it's much different. So we sometimes will say, here's what the classroom schedule looks like. And so when your student is missing these days, every Friday is maybe a test. And so we understand family vacations are important, but this is what that looks like in terms of that. We also bring in that social element and talk about the observations that maybe we have when their student is there. Like, hey, I saw Susan in the cafeteria and she looks like she has this great group of friends and they were having such a great time. I'm so glad she's experiencing that when she's in our school building. Because parents don't see that part.
Right.
And Susan may have woke up that morning and said, I don't really want to go to school. My stomach hurts. I don't want to go. And those little bits help that parent to say, hey, but I understand you have a good friend and you'll get to see them at lunch.
Right.
And give them a tool to kind of get that, get that motion towards getting into the school building again.
Yeah, I think that's so helpful for parents to hear who are figuring it out.
Sure.
Figuring out that it's such a big deal.
And we have to keep our parents engaged.
Absolutely.
They're the parent, and we want them to understand what's happening in the school building. We're supporting them, and they're supporting us. We're a team.
Right.
So we want to bring that all together so that they have that good understanding of, from bell to bell, we have all kinds of things going on, and they're all very important.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there anything else that you want to make sure listeners hear about before we wrap up?
Well, I feel attendance is just such a primary foundational thing. And I think that having the trust in our schools that we are really working and trying to make every minute count, and having a parent on the same team with us on that is just so important. And if there's something that's keeping that student from wanting to be in school or from being able to make it, we want to know. Give us a call and let us know how we can help. That's really what we want to do so that we can make sure that we're giving everybody that opportunity every day.
I think that's such a helpful takeaway of really, letting parents and caregivers know that there are answers and solutions within reach, but you've got to let us know that's what's going on so that we know how we can help. And also that the bell to bell, I don't know half the time. I mean, I'm pretty involved in my kids' school, and even still, I'm like, wonder what they're doing right now. So that bell to bell, that it's chock full of good stuff and that it all matters, I think is just all really helpful things for parents to walk away with after listening to this. So thank you so much for being here for today and for sharing all of your cookies, as we call them here, all your information, your knowledge with families in our area so that they can begin to strengthen their relationship to the schools and that team between teachers, administrators, social workers, families, and that we're all working, together, striving for that same goal of really great attendance, not perfect, but great attendance so that everybody's getting what they need. So thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
The Patterson Foundation's Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading Initiative is a 4-county effort in Charlotte, DeSoto, Manatee, and Sarasota counties in Florida, fostering wide community participation to achieve shared aspirations for the success of families and children. Listeners on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or another streaming service, to learn more about SCGLR and its pillars and programs, visit www.gradelevelreadingsuncoast.net. To learn more about the Patterson Foundation, visit www.thepattersonfoundation.org. For those watching this podcast on YouTube, go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen to learn more or check out the description.